Andreas, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. How are you doing? Good. Awesome. Fantastic. Sounds like you have an amazing day ahead of you with lots of great conversations, and sounds like some really good hands-on work as well. Right? That's always what makes this valuable, and then also networking with each other. So we'll talk about AI and agents, right? The hot topic of the day, the week, of the year, probably for the next decade. But when I talk to leaders, a lot of the questions are around, well, how do we actually make that happen? How do we bring it to our business? And what is that all about, right? Do I just run it like any other IT project from start to finish and some steps in between? Do you think differently? So in the next 30 minutes, we'll talk a bit about that. We have some interactive elements. So for those, I would love for you to take your phones out when we get there to make it a little fun and interactive. So let me see if technology is on my side. It is. Who of you feels like that? Right? The AI hype cycle, the last couple of years, we've shot through that like being on a roller coaster, right? Super, super fast we go up, and then Gen AI starts dipping, flattening out a little bit. All of a sudden, we're talking about agents, and if you're an AI leader, if you're an IT leader, you have a really, really hard time hanging on. Anybody get dizzy when you read all the news? Every day there's something new. Every week is something new. It's crazy. How do you stay on top of all that? So, but in all of that, right? In all of that news, in all of that hype, the question is really what actually matters? What matters to us in our business? What matters in our industry? What matters in my role? And again, very, very quickly from machine learning to generative AI to agentic AI, we're just browsing through. So I'm curious, how about you? Everybody says we've been doing AI for a long time. Yes, I use ChatGPT all the time. I use Gemini and obviously Copilot and many, many other great assistants. But what do you think? How ready is your organization for AI? So please take out your phone, scan the QR code, and we'll see. Do you think your organization is ready? Super ready, a little ready, just getting started? It says waiting. Okay. Can you refresh? Yeah, should be it. Okay, good. Okay, if it says waiting, just refresh the page. Okay, so somewhere in the middle, right? Some AI in production. Looks like some of you are working with agents already. That's great. Does anybody have agents in production? Okay, in the back and in the front. Can I ask what they do?
We work for Microsoft, so we have 10 agents.
Got it. Okay, okay. Wonderful. How about you?
It's mostly analytics.
Okay.
So it can analyze Excel sheets or something like this. It's pretty in exploration mode, but we have a couple of users using it directly in production.
Wonderful. All right. So analytics, different use cases. Certainly, if you work for Microsoft, I'm sure there are plenty of them in production. How about you? Yeah.
We are using right now to interact with all of our data that we document.
Mm-hmm.
So we ask questions through Outlook.
Yeah.
And then it spits out the documents, but right now it's not connected with some files. So we don't have access to the documents.
Okay, something to work on this afternoon, right? Okay, I was joking. Not this afternoon, right? Okay, wonderful. So, it's pretty similar to what I see when I talk to folks in the industry, a good and a broad picture. Maybe you've seen some of those stats as well. Last year, I always struggle with the name, the National Bureau of Economic something, did a study, and they found that roughly 40% of employees use AI regularly. It's doubled since the year before. Everybody says, yes, I use AI. I use it all the time. My company has rolled out Copilot. I use ChatGPT on the side, depending on where you are. But then, almost half of employees say, but I don't tell my manager about it. So Slack was the first company to come out with that study at the end of last year. Duke University has since run their own study and published it in May. They came to a similar conclusion. Why do people not tell their managers and even their peers that they use AI? What do you think? Yeah.
I feel like it's cheating.
Yeah, exactly, right? It's cheating. That was the number one thing that Slack found. What else? What do you think? Same direction, yes? Job could be replaced, yes. Anything else? One more?
Security concern?
Oh. Actually, I think they're at the very bottom, unfortunately, right? Do you have similar experience? Let's put agents into production, let's put AI into production, and then people ask, well, what about the credentials? What about the systems they have access to? So if security is at the bottom of your conversation list, time to move it up. So, but part of the other reasons are, well, if I tell you that I use AI, you might think I'm lazy. Right? I'm not able, or I don't want to do this myself. Right? Number two, I might be incompetent or less competent. I need AI to help me do my work. So that's why people don't share with their manager, with their peers, that they use AI. Right? Has anybody heard of the term AI work slop lately? That's been starting to circulate. Right? So there was an interesting study that a company called BetterUp did with the Stanford Social Media Lab. And they asked, I think, about 1,500 professionals in the US about the AI-generated results that they've received. And a large number said yes. I think 40% seems to be the average these days. Anything is 40%. But 40% of respondents said, yes, I've received work slop in the past month, meaning somebody sent me some information that appears to have been created with AI, and it was not at the level of quality where it needs to be. We've all experienced that, right? It's a simple prompt put into Copilot, put into ChatGPT. You get a result that's okay, but that's not great. But I also don't have a lot of time, right? With everything else that I have on my calendar. So I take it, I send it out. Well, again, contributes to the fact that, well, people might think differently of me as a professional if I'm not, if I'm not diligent enough, if I use AI. So all of that, it's much more a social thing, to my surprise, than technology. It's got nothing to do with Copilot or ChatGPT, but rather how do we work, how is work changing? So keeping that in mind as we bring AI into our businesses is really, really important too. If you're a leader, as leaders, we have a responsibility now to make AI normal, right? Normalize the use of AI. I want you to use AI. I empower you to use AI, but we also need to make sure that we use it in the right way, so we don't create AI work slop. Not so much different from how we've traditionally run teams and how we've set expectations. Right? It was always there. We always want to do great work and things like that. But now with AI, we have a crutch, we have a shortcut, and we need to help our team members be clear that, hey, yes, we can use it. Absolutely. It's the new way of working, but doesn't mean that you're off the hook doing great work. So many, many years ago, outside of business, right, think of libraries. We had information that was siloed in your local place, your local library. You went there, you only could check out the books that were on the shelf. Maybe you could look up which books they have in general, but generally you were just constrained to the information that was there. So obviously with the advent of networks, of the internet, we democratized access. All of a sudden I could see what other libraries in my city, in my county had on their shelves. All of a sudden I could access information anywhere across the world, right? So technology solved the problem of access and accessing information. Now with generative AI, we've also solved the problem of generating information. All of a sudden I no longer need to sit there and type this long article or write up this huge report. Problem solved, right? It's amazing. Anybody working in information management, document management, generating documents, super, super easy. But what's the problem?
Accuracy.
Yeah, accuracy, quality, and all of a sudden we end up with a lot more information that we need to filter. I recently gave a training for leaders at a large manufacturing company, and one of the leaders said, well, these days I end up with so many meeting transcripts and action items and emails that my team members send me, and now I need to look through all of them. I need to see, is there something that's relevant for me, where I use Copilot and summarize it again. So if generating information is solved, the next thing is filtering. How do I even know what's relevant? Maybe you see this in your social media feeds as well. If you're on LinkedIn or if you're on TikTok or Instagram or any of the other platforms. They're being swamped by AI-generated content. And it's up to us to decide, is this relevant or is this not relevant? And we're seeing this in business too. So again, bringing this back to document management, to information management, making sure we have the right information. We know what is our single source of truth. It's been our problem in the industry for a long, long time. Is ever more relevant. Think about feeding your agents with data where you don't really know where it's coming from. Is it accurate? Who's created it? Should we even pull this in? So metadata, all the enrichment becomes a lot more important here. I can also share with you some of the trainings that they give when we ask participants to use Copilot and summarize documents or do the simple, I'm back from vacation, give me a summary of everything that's happened in the last 2 weeks type of prompt. Say, oh, well, it pulls in data from 3 months ago. Oh, it looked at some things that are no longer relevant. Well, again, filtering, making sure we have right and we have accurate data is a lot more important, to your point as well. So question for you, take out your phones again. Have you received subpar results lately? Have you received AI work slop? If it's just waiting, just refresh. So maybe, I don't know how to spot it. No, I'm sure I haven't. Or yes, it was pretty bad. It was pretty bad, okay. Oh. Who would like to share? Why was it bad? What did you receive if you can't share and what made it bad?
Placeholders,
Uh-huh.
like brackets, company name here, things
Okay.
like that are still
Uh-huh.
in the email document, whatever it is.
Great example, yeah.
Or even things that don't apply to us. If we're looking at industry standards,
Mm-hmm.
the document includes things that are completely not applicable.
Okay, thank you for sharing. So placeholders, content that is not relevant to your industry, to your business. Yeah. Excellent. Sometimes, right, you see the long dashes, the M dashes. It's not always a guarantee that text using the M dashes was created with AI, but a lot of times, right, where it's not this, it's that, the types of patterns we see. And I feel also as we receive more and more of that information, we get more sensitized, on one hand, to spot it more quickly, and on the other hand, a little more apprehensive or a little more reserved reading the whole thing. If the first 3 sentences already read like AI slop, I don't even want to know what's in the rest of this thing. Thank you for sharing. So 70%, good. You know, in a way, I feel we've reached this moment. It's almost like a couple decades ago, the calculator, but just way, way bigger. Yes, we have an amazing and powerful tool at our fingertips, literally at our fingertips, any time of the day. But we still need to know how to use it, right? Just like with math and calculus and everything, I need to know the formula. All I do is plug in the values. So I need to know how to use this tool. I need to learn how to use it. In many ways, and I'm sure you've experienced that too, it's like riding a bike. If you're a manager and you want to empower and encourage your team members to use AI, think about using the analogy, right? You can look at all the pictures of bikes. You can watch all the videos of Tour de France, but unless you've actually sat on the bike and you started pedaling, it's not the same experience, right? So we also need to practice. Same thing here as well. But again, the big thing, we're not off the hook just because we can use AI. We also need to be diligent. And I see that's a much more important conversation now than it used to be 2 years ago or even 3 years ago. So really, really big moment, obviously, right? We're here in Microsoft. I remember in one of the essays, Bill Gates compared to the discovery of fire 3 years ago, roughly. So somewhere between fire and calculators, it's probably a pretty good analogy. So, I teach at a local university just outside of Philadelphia. And my students asked me this spring, what do you think? Do I still get a job here when I graduate? With all of that AI stuff? Seems like there are fewer and fewer entry-level roles available around April, May. If you look at the stats, if you look at the news these days, definitely, right? A lot of organizations are thinking about, do we even need these entry-level roles? Do we need as many? Can be delegated to AI? And so I started thinking about this and this framework of how we make decisions with the help of IT systems, acquiring information, synthesizing information, preparing a decision proposal and taking action is something that's been in place for about 25 years in the information system space. And I feel it readily applies here as well. Right? You see a lot of our skills actually shift further to the right. We no longer need to acquire the information. We no longer need to gather the data. In many cases, I think you were saying data analysis with the agent. Agents can do that part for us, but we still need to be knowledgeable on one hand in the domain, and on the other hand, it empowers us to take the decisions, to prepare the proposals. Again, if you're junior, you don't need to gather the data necessarily, but you need to make sure that it's the right information. You can pass it on to your senior team members so they can make the final decision or take action on it. But in my view, it doesn't necessarily mean that we need fewer entry-level roles. Question for you. What is the shape of the organization today? What is the shape of an organization? It's a triangle, right? It's pretty wide at the bottom, gets thinner as you get to the top. So I've been wondering what happens when you hire fewer entry-level roles? Does it become a diamond? And what happens as the diamond gets more senior and senior and senior? Does it become a line? So in many ways, the conversation about we need fewer entry-level roles, we need fewer people, I think misses a critical point. Because you already have people in your business that are knowledgeable about your products, about your industry, about your customers. In some cases, those people might actually be the reason why your customers are doing business with you. They've built a relationship over years and so on. So I think the much better question is, how can we elevate productivity? How can we get people 10 times more productive if we give them the tools? Not how can we reduce 10% of our headcount? That's a balance sheet exercise. That's a here and now, but that's not future looking. So skills, looking at how are things changing, where are they shifting, and how can we make our people more productive? I think that's the kind of conversation we need to have. So it all comes back to data, right? Like we were saying earlier, if you want agents to do data analysis, you probably want accurate data, fresh data, current data, what else? Complete data. Does your data meet all the requirements? Does anybody have clean data, great data, awesome data? I'm not seeing any hands. What's going on? Right? So we've had this problem for a long time in the industry. Been in the industry for 25 years. I used to be in IT for about 14 before I changed roles. There's never clean data. Right? Data, a lot of times, kind of looks like that. That's also our data. It's not just the sensor data, the master data, the transactional data, all the kinds of data that we get. It's never good enough. So we need to put greater emphasis on this if we want agents to respond on our behalf, to use that data, to give good responses, to be helpful. I'm not sure if I'm telling you anything new, looking at your faces. But sometimes I feel you need to state the obvious. Right? So data still is the most important good that we have in a business. Anybody's got a data budget? Yes, good, yeah. Leaders that come to me and say, well, where do I start? We need to do AI, we need to do agents, but I'm not getting budget for all the other things that I need to do. I usually recommend, well, put it as a phase 0. Say we need to do a little bit of data cleanup at least, so we can get started and put agents in production. Look how we do that. So even if you might not have a dedicated budget, seeing where you can carve out something or take it as a step 0 as a prerequisite for doing that is really, really key. maybe this year, I think it was pretty big in the news around April, May timeframe. Lots of CEOs said, we want to be an AI first company. Did anybody, or does anybody remember reading those headlines? Shopify, Klarna, Duolingo. They all said, we want to be an AI first company. A couple of weeks ago, even CEO of Opendoor, one of the real estate tech companies, said the same thing. And usually it goes like this. We want to be an AI first company, ... or else. So coming back to the part about leadership. Or else, what does else mean? A lot of the businesses, probably if you look around, and like you shared in little pulse check at the beginning, a lot of businesses are on a journey to become AI ready. It's about how do we not only understand what technology can do, but how can we empower our people to use it in the right ways and in the best ways possible? What are even great use cases or good scenarios that we should be looking at? How do we tie it back to a business problem, to a business KPI? Those are the big questions, right? Otherwise, you just end up with shiny objects, little pilots that either die on the vine or, again, never really make it in production. And I think that's where a lot of the conversation needs to happen. Also, as IT leaders, right? Because how can you be AI first if you're not even ready? Yes, team members use AI all the time. Again, maybe they use the approved tools. Maybe they use the ones that they have on their phone just to try out a couple of things. Some organizations even clamp down access to AI tools. I think that just creates shadow AI, just like we've had shadow IT for a long time. But this notion of being ready, I think, is a lot more important these days when access is ubiquitous, free, right? You pay with your data in that sense. That's what makes you valuable to the AI labs. So how do we get people AI ready is the big thing. And what you'll see in the book as well, I talked to more than 60 AI leaders before writing the book. By now, I'm close to 100. But the things that were common across all of them, things that I've seen in my previous roles, building and leading an AI center of excellence at SAP, are those 9. First of all, we need to know what is happening in the industry. What are the big trends that are going on? As technology professionals and leaders, I'm sure you subscribe to some of the feeds. Again, we get inundated with news, this new model, this new feature, here's an app, here's another partnership, billions of dollars in funding, in investments. But how much of that is really relevant? And how much of that is really relevant beyond that one news cycle? So keeping that in mind, what's the big picture? What's happening in our industry? What's happening in our function? And what are the tools that we use on a regular basis that vendors are adding AI to? And is it useful? Right? I'm sure that's part of the conversation that you'll have today and part of the reason why you're here, right? Learning about these things. Strategy. Some of the companies I work with, leaders say, yeah, we gave everybody Copilot. We're done. Are you? Not really, right? It helps with productivity for sure, but there's much more opportunity in different business functions, in your HR, in your finance, in your supply chain. So connecting what we can do with what we want to do as a company. What are our big goals for the next 3 years? How do we get more revenue? How do we reduce cost? How do we improve our customer satisfaction score? Those are the big KPIs that we actually need to look at and set the strategy for. Leadership. Which of your companies has an AI leader, head of AI, chief AI officer? Anybody in charge of AI? Yeah, some, right? There's been a growing trend to bring in chief AI officers or heads of AI to centralize this topic of AI under one leadership role, from technology to training and enablement, working with HR, and so on. Keeping an eye on what's happening, right? So centralizing it helps give AI the level of strategic relevance, if you will, that it needs. Then how do we bring AI to our company? How can we collaborate across different teams? A lot of times you might have a data science team or an AI team, and in the worst case, they work on something and noodle around. And then they show it to the business, and the business says, well, It's not what I wanted. It's not what I need. So how do you bring them together from the very beginning and create some peer learning? So the data scientists learn more about the business. They learn more about finance and HR and what matters there. And on the other hand, you have some cross-pollination, and your HR and finance stakeholders become more knowledgeable about the technology. So they can look for additional opportunities. Now that I know what I can do with AI, right, here are some opportunities. And then obviously around ethics, privacy, I think that becomes only more important these days. I don't know if anybody reads that sort of news, but the AI assistants, more companionship type apps that are emerging for mental health, for again, more companionship. So social media 2.0 in a sense that lures you in. I think there are much bigger conversations to be had also in business. What do we actually want to focus on? What types of scenarios do we allow? What is high risk? What is medium risk, low risk? These sort of things. So you find a lot about that in the book too. And like we were saying earlier, security, right, only gets more important. When I can give my credentials to an agent, and the agent acts on my behalf, and it has access to my OneDrive, to M-Files, to whatever else I might have, security is really, really important. So how do we sensitize our team members, our colleagues, that security is that big important topic? And how do we manage that from an IT security point of view as well? Again, as we bring more agents in, one of the topics that we need to keep front and center. Question for you, who of you is a manager or has been a manager before? Okay, good. So something we do as managers on a daily basis, multiple times a day, is delegating tasks, right? Hey, Joe, can you work on this for me? Right? It needs to be done by then. Here are the people I want you to work with. Here's additional information. Becomes second nature for us. Right? But for a lot of professionals, that kind of framework, that kind of structure, how do I delegate, is something new. So thinking about this as we use AI, as we bring agents to the business, I think is really important. What's the objective? What's the context? What's the data I want you to use? What are additional resources and outcomes? And again, if agents can work for 30 hours at the moment already, think about if they're able to work for a longer time. You want to make sure that you get these things right if that agent goes off and does some work and comes back. So again, as leaders, part of preparing the organization is preparing our team members and helping them learn and understand. Here are some frameworks. Right? If you want an agent to work on something and you give it a goal, it could be your co-pilot agent, it could be a different agent. Think about it in these 5 or 6 buckets, 6 being by when do I want you to be done. So delegating becomes a lot more important. And Claude is able to work for 30 hours straight. So maybe real quick, what kind of agents do you use? You already said data and analysis. And if you're not using agents yet, what are you exploring, or what would you be most interested about? Software developers. Awesome, yes, right? We can create virtual teams of software developers, from writing specifications to writing the code, doing the QA. RFP agents, excellent, yeah. I was on a webinar on a panel a couple of weeks ago. Somebody from Intel shared that they're using RFP agents to analyze RFPs, to send out information. Co-pilots, UX research, training agents, market intelligence, note takers. Awesome, those are some really, really good examples. Right? Maybe you see some of some new ones there that you haven't considered yet. So definitely lots and lots of potential for sure, right? So the thing that gets me excited is where we are right now. A lot of times when we start out, we build one agent that solves one task. Right? Take software development, write a specification for this functionality. Well, we can obviously augment them. We can add additional agents, like we were just saying, do the coding. Cursor, Windsurf, Replit, some of these tools help us do that. We can also do the QA. Is this good? Is this good code? Is it secure code? Is it complete? So building it out. I can tell you, last week I spoke in Pennsylvania to a group of manufacturing leaders. When I showed this slide, they looked at me like deers in headlights. Like, what is he talking about? What do you mean agents and software can take a goal and work independently? So depending on the industry that you're in, maybe you're seeing this too. There's really a digital divide between what we're talking about here and what technology forward leaders are seeing versus what sometimes the reality is in different businesses as well. But I think it gets super exciting when we think about that there are agents that can do business between different businesses, a sales agent, a procurement agent, and how does all of that work? So keeping that at least in view as a perspective, where are things going? I would encourage you to do that. All right, so in closing, what we've seen is that if we want to make a vision like that a reality, where there are multiple agents working together, where there are agents working across companies, it always comes back to, that's the equivalent of my hook. So we see it always comes back to, obviously, having the data so we can feed it to our agents, so they deliver good results and relevant results and accurate results. It's also a matter of security. Can I audit what is actually happening and what has happened? Who has access to it? What was done with the data? And given the access in the first place. So focusing on people, on data, to get the results. Those are the three things that I would like for you to take away with from this session. I hope you enjoyed reading the book. We've got 20 copies in the room. There's more coming later this afternoon. If you'd like to get an audiobook version of it, feel free to scan the QR code and submit your email address. So that's how you can bring AI to the business, how you prepare your organization from leadership, from sharing with your team members. I want you to use AI, but you're not off the hook delivering good results. Two, how do we think about it strategically? Where does it actually make sense to use it? And how can we start with data as really the source of these good results? Thank you so much. I'll be around for a little more. If you have any questions, I'd like to have a conversation. Thank you.